If you're the police, where are your badges?
Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
You know, John, research has just come back. Did you know about this?
Oh, can you be a little more vague? Was it also part of a study?
Well, it's research and study, an audience attitudinal study. And it's interesting because when we start off with the Chris Cook Memorial Sound Drop, our audience increases by 32%. Don't you find that interesting?
I do, and I think that's because it's day 2 of you playing that drop, and you haven't beaten people over the head with it.
Just wait. That is the voice of John Combest, Combest. By the way, today is March 14th? Or no,
it is not March, Brad.
I want to say March. August 14th. Tomorrow's the 15th. August 14th, this is the A block. And the reason I mention that is a lot of people listen to the show live over the air at 104.5, or they stream it on our site. You can check it out at either westplextalk.com. There's a streaming button right at the top, and also bjshow.co. Streaming button right at the top. You can't miss it. And the reason I mention that is a lot of people listen to this in the future on bjshow.co or bjshow.us, which is the YouTube version of it. So that way it gives them some reference what we're talking about. Right, John? Is that a good explanation?
That's a fantastic explanation, Brad.
And that is John Combest. Every single day of his life, he puts together this incredible list of important stuff that you should know about. Now, the only problem is we would have to have a 3-hour show to do every single item that's on John's list. But what we do is we start the show off here with this guy right here.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what we do is we cull it down to the top 3. And we start off with...
In third place...
Brad, I'm going to ask you to pause before you take your traditional sip of your Mountain Dew or other disgusting high glycemic drink that you shovel in your gullet in the morning, and ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot, Brad. If you could rifle through your anecdotes, do you happen to have one of your, matter of fact, anecdotes about, say, being offered a trip to the Lake of the Ozarks and turning down a Tantera trip? Do you happen to have one of those anecdotes, one of those matter of fact anecdotes handy, Brad?
John, hold on a minute. I'm drinking my you're making fun of me, but I'm drinking my muscle milk. Hold on just a minute.
Wow. Are you sure it's not called potbelly milk?
No, it's called muscle milk. You know what? My kids, years ago, when my kids were of that age, and I'm not a lake guy, but my kids, when they were getting at that age, and their friends would say, Dad, my friend Billy wants to know, his parents want to know, can I go down to spend the weekend with Billy at their place, Lake of the Ozarks? And I would look them in the eye and say, yes, but don't get in the water because there's brain-eating amoebas in the water down at Lake of the Ozarks. I would tell them.
And little did people know how prescient that advice was, Brad.
Right.
I anticipated this being in Brad's top 3 in B block. So I naturally wanted to steal it from you, Brad. There's several headlines across the state of Missouri today, including one from MissouriNet, including one from St. Louis Public Radio, as well as the Post-Dispatch. We'll go with the one from Michelle Hotcross Munns at the Post-Dispatch. Man infected with brain-eating amoeba after water skiing in Lake of the Ozarks. Now, Brad, usually, CWS stories, crazy weird stories, are your province, in either B block or C block. But this does involve the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, so I included it here. A gentleman is battling for his life at a St. Louis area hospital after being infected with a rare brain-eating amoeba after water skiing at the Lake of the Ozarks last week, according to state health officials. Munns and other folks go on to detail the fact that I think the use of rare brain-eating amoeba is probably inaccurate based on what I've seen just from these stories, and that it's not altogether uncommon for this amoeba to be present in lakes and ponds and streams, I guess. But what is rare is that it makes its way up someone's sinus passages and actually gets to the brain. So if I understand this correctly, and I'll quote Munns here, the amoeba is particularly active when water temperatures exceed 77 degrees, and the water temperature in Lake of the Ozarks ranges from 75 to 86 degrees in August, according to fishing websites. People are infected when water containing the parasite enters the body through the nose, usually while victims are swimming or diving. So, Brad, this is quite a scary story. As I read this, and I don't know how you interpreted some of the news stories in this, Brad, but to me, it's not that the amoeba is particularly super rare. It's just that it's very unlikely that it makes its way up and affects you. And if it does, according to these pieces, it's hard for doctors to treat it because by the time you notice that you have flu-like symptoms and you actually haul yourself to the doctor, it's often too late.
Well, not only that, I don't know if you saw that in your research in the story. They did ask their Dr. Fauci about this, and Dr. Fauci said all you have to do is just wear a mask when you're water skiing at Lake of the Ozarks, and everything will be fine.
That would make perfect sense, and you definitely want to keep 6 feet distance from any sort of amoeba. Now, the actual actionable advice about this comes from DHSS, which is that if you were clearing out your sinuses, use distilled or boiled tap water when rinsing your sinuses. They say hold your nose or wear a nose clip if you are jumping or diving into fresh water. Don't dive in shallow water because amoeba is more likely to live there. They don't say this, but also you're much more likely to break your neck if you dive into shallow water. So yeah, Brett, this sounds like a freak occurrence, which is obviously tragic for this man and for his family. But it sounds like, I mean, gosh, out of the tens of thousands of people who choose to swim in Party Cove and other places at Lake of the Ozarks, they seem to come out just fine, so to speak. And it just seems like a freak occurrence here.
I just saw another bulletin that came out from what was the DHSS? Is that who the people is? Yeah,
Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. Yeah, what did they say, Brad?
They also said don't water ski with scissors. So I'm sorry, John. I couldn't resist that. Sometimes I amuse myself. Isn't that funny? Don't water ski with scissors. Come on, John. Come on.
I mean, it would be. I mean, first of all, you would be more likely to cut the rope if you had scissors there, right? Hey, speaking of people who are knuckle draggers and who make trite references, that leads us nicely into story number 2.
Are you talking about me again? Okay, let's go to number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
This is a case, Brad, of good journalism in the state of Missouri, from a source that you might not expect it from. I'm talking about the Kansas City Star. Kacen Bayless, who, as I point out, probably every week or every other week, is a really good reporter at the Kansas City Star. And he did a good job with what he could have turned into some sort of ridiculous, meme-worthy hit piece against Republicans. I'll read you Kacen's headline, and we'll go from there. Chiefs, being the Kansas City Chiefs, donate to group backing Missouri Republicans amid stadium debate. How much? You know, newspapers today a lot of times do that thing of they don't want to give you the answer in the headline so that you click on it, you know? So Kacen goes on to point out that the Kansas City Chiefs contributed $25,000 to the House Republican Campaign Committee, and the donation was made public on Tuesday. Now, Brad, I'm going to ask you to do something way out of character. I'm going to ask you to be a reactionary, knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing troglodyte who only skims headlines. Tell me what you think of the Chiefs giving $25,000 to Missouri Republicans.
I have to turn my microphone back on because I was drinking my Mountain Dew. I think that the Chiefs have been down at Lake of the Ozarks and they've been water skiing. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, and so they are obviously affected by an amoeba and gave money to Missouri Republicans. No, I think a lot of folks, Brad, would read maybe a news brief or a headline and say, "Oh, gee, golly gosh, there go them billionaires trying to buy legislators." What Kacen does a good job of in the story, and why I say it's a good piece of journalism, is Kacen gives what too few reporters actually do, which is he gives context. For example, Brad, the Chiefs sponsor the Missouri House Republican Campaign Committee's event every year. In fact, Hannah Beers Sutton, who leads HRCC, points that fact out. She also points out that groups that sponsor the HRCC Summer Caucus will actually write their checks at different points throughout the summer. So if you're sponsoring the event, you might write your check in June, you might bring it with you in July, or you might just give it to HRCC in August. Hannah also points out that the HRCC team, which is Hannah, fundraiser extraordinaire, Casey Burns, the team Dallas Ernst, John Ratliff still plays a major role in the group. If I forget names, Brad, blame it on my middle-aged brain and not my heart. These folks raised $1.6 million for the HRCC Summer Caucus. So when you put it in that context, Brad, not only was the Summer Caucus a wild success in terms of fundraising, but the Chiefs tossed off a little bit of cash, which they do every year. And Kacen does another good job by pointing out, hey, Missouri Soybean Association tossed in 30 grand. You know, other folks wrote checks as well. And I think this goes to show, Brad, that if you're a reporter that just throws out a line like, Chiefs give 25 grand, you do it because you want to get an angry reaction out of people. You want the kind of people that go to Wendy's, Brad. I don't know if you know these folks, but they buy a biggie bag and they complain about the price or whatever. You want those type of folks to complain about how they're billionaires are buying them their lawmakers again. So good job for Kacen to point out that these contributions are all in the broader context of a huge event. And Brad, as I scroll through Kacen's story here, I may have misspoke because I don't think he mentioned the Missouri Soybean Association contribution. Jason Hancock from the Missouri Independent did mention that contribution. So this is a long-winded way of saying, Brad, good for Kacen Bayless for pointing out, yeah, Chiefs threw a little bit of cash to a political group, but it was in the grand scheme of things of $1.6 million, not a big deal, and the Chiefs do it every year. Good job, Kacen Bayless. You set a good example for other journalists in the state of Missouri.
You know, what's interesting about that is, John, is that the journalists, and you talk about high writing, you know, that's sort of interesting. You bring up an interesting point because of the fact that journalism has changed in the respect that you used to, the way a newspaper article was written was essentially what they call the upside down pyramid. The
inverted pyramid,
right?
Correct.
The inverted pyramid. Okay, now all the important stuff is in the damn headline, but you don't include all the facts because, like you say, you want people to click on it. What's the story here, right? You know, this whole thing. You know, I want to know. Here's the story I want to know. I want to know how much money the Chiefs are contributing to the Kansas legislators. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. And so that would be a good piece of information too. I think if somebody had the time to go through or the journalistic chops to go through and see how they're giving money. Now, Brad, what I don't see in Kacen's piece is how much the Chiefs have contributed to Democrat PACs. Now, I'm sure in Missouri, they're not going to give as much money to the House Democratic Campaign Committee because why would you give money to an impotent group that has no effect on anything whatsoever? Other than to just be kind and maybe get a meeting here or there with some folks. But again, Brad, anytime you see a contribution number and people say, whoa, that seems huge, put it in the context. Who else is giving money? How much are the other groups getting? Does this group give money every year? I can't stand irresponsible journalism that chases headlines to get the biggie bag crowd to freak out instead of giving real context to the story.
And by the way, John, let me say that the biggie bag, if you get the bacon junior cheeseburger, is still $5. Although I'm a little bit upset with McDonald's because the $5 value meal, where you could choose between the McDouble or the McChicken, used to be $5. Well, it's still $5 for the McChicken. Apparently, beef costs have gone up because if you get the $5 value meal with the McDouble, it's now $5.50. So,
I know, Brad, and from what I see on some dating sites, the value of your beef remains very low. Brad, when you talk about fast food diets, is there any place people can go that will never actually be promoted and have no marketing dollars behind it, where people could buy a course from Brad Hildebrand to learn how to use fast food to lose weight?
John, you will be happy to know that I have gotten good reviews of my new course. It's called.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Was it from an AI bot named Trixie,
No.
who dances on a virtual stage for you?
And what's interesting was already I've had some suggestions, and I've gone in and I've improved the course. Matter of fact, I improved it last night. It's bigger and better than ever. Yes, fastfoodmediet.com. And if you want to know the heritage of this, I have lost weight for decades by eating fast food. When I go off of fast food, I gain weight. And everybody goes like, how's that possible? So years ago, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, I did what they call the fast food me diet, which was sort of a play on words with the supersize me crap that, I think that guy's dead.
Yeah, we talked about that 2 months ago. We got 4 minutes left, so wrap up your fast food thing.
See,
Brad.
he didn't eat enough fast food. That's why he died. Anyway, the idea being is I came up with the fast food me diet, and you just go to fastfoodmediet.com. It's simple as that. Okay, now, number one.
The number one.
It's hard to think of a bigger outlet for conservatives than Tucker Carlson, but our own Eric Schmitt, the junior senator from Missouri, the man who is not from Billions, he's from Bridgeton, was on probably the most popular conservative outlet in the country, and that's the Tucker Carlson Show. It debuted last night, and Brad, in full disclosure, I did not watch Tucker Carlson. I was watching a pop singer and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother on a show. There are very few females who influence my behavior, but there are two, and they're both in elementary school. And last night I watched the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift interview. I did not watch Tucker Carlson, but for the sake of folks who go to johncombest.com today, you can find a link to the Tucker Carlson interview with Eric Schmitt. You can also find a transcript. Now, I'm a transcript guy, Brad. I generally don't listen to stuff anymore, even watch stuff anymore. So in the transcript, I'll just give a couple highlights of main buckets. Schmitt was asked about lawfare, was asked about how the Biden administration collaborated with Zuckerberg and all these other people to suppress conservative ideas. To your point, Brad, and I guess to your credit, Eric Schmitt talked about kabuki. He said there was a little bit of kabuki theater going on. He talked about Fauci. He talked about the COVID lockdowns. He specifically pointed to the fact that as Attorney General, he went after some of these school districts that were forcing 5-year-olds to wear masks all day for a disease that obviously didn't affect children hardly at all. So I would recommend, folks, if you don't want to watch the whole interview with Tucker Carlson, I'm guessing it's a multi-hour interview. I have the transcript up today, Brad. Very cool to see our own Eric Schmitt sitting down and getting the national spotlight he deserves from Tucker Carlson.
John, you threw something out there. Do you know the Taylor Swift Cardinals connection?
Yeah, you've talked about it several times on the show, Brad.
No. This is brand new.
Oh, no. Okay. Okay. I don't know this connection then.
Okay. I'm not making this up. I read this.
So you are making it up. You mentioned the fact that her connection with someone who lives here in St. Louis, like her aunt was here, and you went through this whole thing before. But what's your made up story about the Cardinals?
Well, her grandma lived here. Grandma lived in Alton. Okay.
I get it. Okay. Yeah. What's the new thing?
The Taylor Swift Cardinals connection is the Cardinals are 8-0 on the days that Taylor Swift has announced her new album.
Is that right, Brad? Now, you just made that up, right?
I did not. I read that. Once again, you got all these baseball nerds, and they said that during the baseball season, every time Taylor Swift has announced a new album, the Cardinals have won. And now the last 8 albums she's announced during baseball season, that day the Cardinals have won. I'm not making that up.
I just fact-checked it, Brad. It is true.
Yes.
And it's from Fox News. Cardinals maintain a perfect record on Taylor Swift album day. It started in October of 2006.
Yes.
And the Cardinals last won on August 11th, 2023.
Right.
So, Brad, you were correct. This unnamed rumor is actually true.
Yes. Is that bizarre? I see. Now, the interesting part of that is how much of a statistics nerd do you have to be to come up with that one? You know what I'm saying?
I think in 2025, probably not much. I think you could probably go to an AI bot and say, find connections between Taylor Swift and the St. Louis Cardinals, And an AI bot could probably do that for you.
There was an interesting story yesterday on one of the national talk shows about people who are, and you think I'm kidding about, according to AI, they asked the I think it was ChatGPT about a situation, and it came back. No, what was it? It had something to do with some government official. Oh no, Pete Hegseth. They asked the AI bot about Pete Hegseth about something with and the answer came back that Pete Hegseth was promoting somebody's birthday, and I mean it was just a bizarre story, and it's going like. And what's interesting about this is I do more and more AI stuff all the time. One of these days
you don't say, Brad. Do you do it for the Brad and Bronjon show? Do you put up a thumbnail that calls our show the Brad and Bronjon show, and you don't even look at it, and then you post it for the world to see?
John, you know what's so interesting? You and I couldn't be any different personality.
That's right. I check my work, and I have a level and a standard of professionalism that suggests that I have respect for our audience. You're right, Brad.
And you're saying that I don't have a respect for our
audience?
No,
I didn't say that. I just say that I respect our audience enough to double check something before I throw it out on the internet. It would be like making a website for a fast food diet, Brad, and then leaving lipsum aurum usa, click here, people we've worked with, imaginary companies. Let's just leave up a low-effort website and not take 30 seconds to delete the stuff we don't need.
Can I tell you something, John?
Please do.
When we finish this show at 8 o'clock, the rest of my day just sucks. This is the high point of my day.
Thank you, Brad.
This is the high point of my day, because where else can I have a learned compatriot, that's what I'll call you, a learned compatriot just slice and dice me for an hour. God, I love it.
You know what, Brad? You would have to find a dominatrix in Las Vegas to do it for an hourly sum.
Right. And I'd have to get that ball in my mouth and I couldn't talk, right?
Ooh.
Okay, we have to take a break.